Hey, everybody. If you guys want to grab seats, we're going to start shortly. Thank you guys for coming to last session. Woo! Are you guys pumped? Yeah! Last session, yeah. So we're very lucky to have the last but not least small changes, big payoffs, led by our payment growth teams, where they're going to tell you about the learnings that they've gained with updates they made with the payments product and how you guys can apply it to any of your guys' integrations and app. So let's welcome Sharon and Pratap. Yeah.
God, I'm standing between a room full of people and alcohol. That is a bad place to be in, right? All right. Hi, my name is Sharon. I am the product manager on payments.
Hi, I'm Pratap. I'm an engineering manager at Facebook. I work on payments and growth.
All right, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the team that I work on, payments growth. What is payments growth? Well, every day, every dollar that goes through Facebook goes through our payments platform. Every cow you buy in Farmville, every app install ad campaign you start goes through this tremendous pipe that we get to stand on and try and make a little bit better through optimizations. Why is this important to you? Well, if you're a game developer in the crowd today and you build on Facebook Canvas, you actually get all this stuff for free, which is pretty awesome. We actually work for you. But more importantly, for every single developer in this room, you're building a product that could stand to be optimized just a little bit. Every morning, you wake up to a number that you wish were a little bit higher, and we share that challenge. And that's why we want to give this talk today, so that we can share our learnings, and you can share your learnings, so that we get good at growth together. Oh, I don't have the clicker. Telekinetic moving of slides have not been invented yet, so let's do this the right way. All right, so we're going to talk about this in 3 sections. First, we'll talk about the growth mindset and process. We've been doing this not for a lot long of a time. We've actually only been doing this for a year, but one of the first things we learned was that the mindset and process that you have while going into growth is as important as the experiments and ideas themselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Second, this is the fun part. It's called the good, the bad, and the neutral. We're actually going to show you some of our experiments, but we're not going to tell you which one did well. We'll show you 2 treatments, version A, version B, and you get to decide which one you think did best. And I actually have a couple prizes on hand for specifically the first row because I'm really lazy at walking. So first row will get prizes, and then you guys, the rest of you in the back, should come up and get prizes later. And last, I'll finish with best practices. Those are the things that I want you to leave this room with today. All right, let's start. Let's talk about mindset. So the first thing I think about when I think about growth mindset is actually being open-minded. And when I think of open-mindedness, I actually think of a tractor maker in the 1950s in Italy named Ferruccio. And the reason I think of this guy is because he used to make a name for himself making agricultural equipment after World War II. Now, he also was an avid sports car fan. And so he bought himself a Ferrari 250 GT until the clutch broke, and then he looked at it and realized it was the same clutch that was used in his tractors. So he takes the clutch to Ferrari and says, give me a better replacement. And Ferrari says, what would you know about automobiles and sports cars? You are a tractor maker. On that day, Ferruccio decided to start a line of automobiles himself, and we know him better today by his full name and line of cars, Ferruccio Lamborghini. The point is, great ideas can come from really unexpected places. When we started out, we were sourcing ideas from the product team. That wasn't good enough. We needed to source ideas from all parts of the org in order to find the wins that we're going to show you today. Second, data-driven. This is probably not the first time you saw this slide. Hopefully it'll be the last because I'm the last session, but data-driven is important. On so many of the tests that we're going to show you today, we're going to embarrass ourselves because our initial hypothesis was completely off. Had we not had data, we would have not known how, the right product decision that we were supposed to make. So make sure your intuition isn't coloring the right product decision for you. Third, sorry, I can count. Persistent. Earlier this year, I bought a gong on Amazon, like a full-on legit symbol that you get in like middle school band. And I bought this gong because on Payments Growth, we have this tradition. Every single time you have a win, you get to hit the gong as hard as you can. And it was important for us to have this tradition because in the business of growth, there are a lot of failures along the way. For every 30, 40 tests that fail, you'll have one that wins. And we needed a way to celebrate the wins as they came. Being persistent is important. You need to actually fight through the slog of tests that are going to come back neutral and negative to find the one that's positive. All right. I'm going to finish by talking a little bit about process. You're probably looking at this slide right now and thinking, that looks a lot like our product development cycle. Like, we do all these things too. That's about true, right? Like, all companies have something that looks a little like this. And that's true. I'd say there's about 3 different things that's true about growth that's not true about you today. The first is we use hexagon diagrams, or hexagon icons, and that's like really super snazzy because it's like 6 sides of awesome. Second, speed is key. Like for us, that entire process takes about 4 weeks. We actually started with 6, and that was too long. When you're in the business of testing a lot of things and reaching a lot of failures, the only way to keep momentum is being able to cap things in a month and move on. And so it's really important to maintain the speed and momentum to keep these cycles short. The third thing is the step measure. We invest heavily in the last step. We worship our analysts, and we build analytics frameworks to make this easy, because without that last step, this process goes from a circular process to a linear one. And then you end up launching things and not knowing how to learn from them. That's a really, really poor state to be in, and you cripple your ability to iterate. Make sure you invest in the last step. I used to be a former analyst, and so I can really, really, really harp on this. All right, here you go. Here's the fun part: the good, the bad, and the neutral. I explained a little bit about how this is going to work, but we're going to show you 2 treatments. Pratap's going to give you a little context. I'm going to run around with prizes, and you're going to guess. And I know this is the last session, but I'm going to get everybody in this room to raise their hand, OK? Got it? All right, let's go.
All right, so this is the first test. The context on this is the credit card form that is shown to users and advertisers who want to buy something on Facebook with a new credit card. In version A that you see is that the expiration date is in the form of a text field with MM and YY written as placeholder text. So the user needs to go in to these fields and type out the month and the year. In version B, the expiration date is a drop-down box for month and year, month being from January to December, and the year being the 4-digit year that the user needs to select. Other than these differences in expiration date behavior, these 2 forms are exactly the same.
All right, are you guys ready? OK, here you go. Version A, raise your hand, come on. Whoa, OK, all right. You guys really, yeah, which one's better? Do you think version A is version A? I'm confusing a lot of people. OK, all right, version A is better. OK, everyone down? Version B, who thinks version B is better? OK, all right, what about neutral? These things are exactly the same. I have no idea what the difference is. Nobody. One guy. Wait, no, are you just pointing? OK, sorry. One guy over there. Awesome. Way to represent the three states. OK, who said version A? All right, you guys are right. That was a 2.4% lift in completions. One for you. All right, oh, that was a bad throw. Here you go.
Yeah, so while she's giving out prizes, the really important thing here is that these are small changes that led to huge results. Like 2.4% completion in lift in completions is huge, and it's probably less than 10 lines of code, nothing more.
So what we think happened here were 2 things. First, people really like their keyboards. We were in the version B, you had to switch to your mouse. You go with keyboard, mouse, mouse, keyboard, keyboard. You interrupt the flow of the user. That's one thing. But the second, more interesting thing is this. In version B, the month dropdown was actually the full text of the month. So it said January, February, March, April. Now, that might not seem like a big difference to you, but if you pull out your credit card right now and you look at the expiration date, what are you going to see as the expiration date? Exactly. Digits. And by making it slightly different, it actually made it so much easier for the user. Just total frictionless, right? You have your card in front of you, and it matches exactly what you're inputting. Small changes like that, 2.4% lift in completions.
Yeah. All right, so this is the next one. The context on this is the payments dialog that is shown to users who want to buy something on Facebook. In version A, the option for credit card is labeled as credit card with the logos for the credit card company shown to the right of the label. In version B, we changed the label from instead of credit card to make it credit/debit card with the same set of logos that are shown to the right of the label. In both these cases, it was the exact same functionality, the only difference being the content on the label.
All right, are you guys ready? Version A, short and sweet. We got a couple. Okay, late bloomers, I like it. Okay, version B, credit/debit card. Okay, all right. Okay, awesome. What about neutral? This is a 6-character content change, makes no difference. I remember when we ran this test, me and Pratap, like neutral, right?
Yeah, neutral. Just a really small change.
It's a content change, right? But this is actually brought to our attention by our partnerships team, shout out to PJ over there, for actually saying that, look, most people don't know that they can use their debit card. All right, so who had version B? Raise your hand. All right, you guys are going to get some prizes. Awesome. OK.
Yeah, so this is a 1.5% lift in credit card completions for just a text change. Right? So most engineering teams don't think about content as like a really important part, but this really showcases that really small things like text changes, things that don't take a huge amount of technical work, is just like evaluating the flow, seeing where the opportunities are, can yield huge results. And it's a 1.5%.
So I'm betting that everybody, certainly everybody on the payments team knew debit cards. You can use them in Amazon flows. That's intuitive to me, at least. Like, I know if I go on Amazon, I can use a debit card, and that will work fine. In fact, I bet everyone in the audience probably knows this to some degree. But the truth is, 1.5% of our users didn't. And for them, this was really, really helpful. Every single one of us here makes assumptions when we build products about what we think our users know. That's why it's so critical to re-examine those assumptions every single time you build a product so that you can actually catch those 1.5% of people that don't know this. For us, this was a simple change just to correct that assumption. And I'm guessing that you guys have opportunities to do this as well.
So another interesting data point is the lift was much higher in the international markets than in the US. So it's important to look at your data, see where the lifts are, slice it by demographics, slice it by country, learn from it.
All right, here you go.
So this is another one. The context is similar to the previous one. This is the payments dialog that is shown to users who want to buy something on Facebook. In version A, the cancel button is shown right next to the main action button. And the main action button is the one to go ahead and purchase the item. In version B, what we did was we removed the explicit cancel button and moved the cancel button to the top right of the dialog. That is, both these things are indicated by the arrows. In version A, explicit cancel button. Version B, no explicit cancel button. The X out at the top right acts as the cancel button.
OK, you guys ready?
The goal is so that they don't cancel if you want to buy, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's the goal.
Good question.
Yeah.
The goal is conversion. The goal is not to improve conversion on the cancel button. All right. OK. Version A, simple, nice and sweet, cancel button. How about version B? Ooh, that looks like everybody. OK. What about neutral? Makes no difference. Couple holdouts. Colin, cheater. All right. OK. Awesome. So I actually can't give out any prizes this time because all of you guys are somewhat right. Conversion went up, but refund rate increased by 30%. 30%! That is so bad. Literally, people were getting version B and thinking, I can't figure out how to cancel out of this flow. I better just buy the item and charge back later. This is a terrible flow when it involves charging back as part of actually canceling out a flow. So the important lesson to learn here is you can find things, growth tactics, experiences that raise conversion temporarily, but if they're bad experiences, it won't be permanent. Make sure that you're optimizing for the long term and not the short term.
Yeah. So two things I want to add here is One is look at data from a 360-degree perspective. So in this case, if we just looked at the conversion rate, the version B would have been like a clear success, and we would have lost the long-term trust of our user base. So because we had like a suite of metrics that we would look to evaluate every single experiment, we would be able to take a really informed decision on which is the right version. The second thing is like build products that your users will love. Like don't optimize for the short term. Think about how your user base would be like 1 year from now, 2 years from now. And if you try to optimize really hard for the short term, you would be in a state where you would lose users in the long run.
OK, let's move on to the next one.
All right. So this is on the games product. The user wants to buy something. They come on to Facebook Canvas. They come onto a game. They click on the buy button. So after they click on the buy button, they see the payments dialog. For the payments dialog to load, there is a good amount of data fetch that needs to happen, and because of which there is latency. So in version A, there is an intermittent message called loading that is shown while the dialog is being loaded. And in version B, we made the message slightly fancier. We made it more security, educational, put in a lock icon. But fundamentally, both version A and B had the exact same latency. It was just the messaging while the dialog was loading, what the user would see.
OK. Wait, I got a question. Sorry? Version B, yes, it's actually loading, and it should show different things underneath the bottom. So right now it says establishing secure connection, but it'll actually rotate to a couple more text fields, right?
Yeah, in most of the cases, it's a secure connection. So like for 99% of the cases, this was the static message. For cases where it was not over HTTPS, that would have been we would have messaged something differently. But by and large, this was the message.
All right, are you guys ready? Version A, I love ellipses. OK, no? All right, version B, I love lock icons. OK, all right, lots of clip art enthusiasts. Awesome. What about neutral? No difference whatsoever. This corner, like neutral city right here. OK, all right, awesome. OK, I'm running to you guys. This is neutral. No statistically significant changes in was it? Yep. All right.
Yeah, latency is latency. It's really hard to message something to reduce the perception of latency. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, the point is that if it took you 5 minutes to load the screen, it's still going to take you 5 minutes to load the screen, no matter how many lock icons we throw on it. Though I do think there is real estate for more. But we should probably just work on latency.
Just work on latency.
That does seem like the more high leverage thing.
Yeah.
Oh, do you mind? Do you want to answer? OK, we can do.
Your question?
Oh.
So are you saying that like even with version A, even if that would take like, let's say their internet connection is terrible and that thing takes 5 minutes just with just the loading text versus just giving them a message that at least makes a little sense, you're saying there's absolutely no difference?
When we ran this test, there was no statistically significant change in our metrics.
And how high was that latency? Like how?
It really depends. So one of the things that we should have probably done a better job is cutting out actually specifically the people that were most affected by this. We looked at this overall, so we saw no statistically significant changes in the metrics. But that's a good idea. We should actually iterate on this. Be persistent. I like it.
It's a question.
Oh, whoa. Also, we do have time allocated at the end for questions, so feel free to ask at the end too. All right. Are we OK? All right. Should we move on, or do we? OK.
All right.
You good?
Let's move on.
Awesome. I like this guy. OK.
Later. OK. This is on the ads product. So advertisers come in. They want to make an ad. At the end of creating an ad, they need to enter a payment method so that we can charge them for the ad that they've created. Many of these advertisers also get discount coupon codes that they can enter after they put in their primary payment method. In version A, we messaged with a yellow banner at the top that they would get a discount code after they enter their credit card, PayPal, or a bank account. In version B, we removed the yellow banner and made it a checkbox at the bottom left of the dialog to indicate that they can put in a discount code after they put in their credit card or PayPal. So again, to summarize, version A, there's a yellow banner to indicate that they can put in a put in a discount code afterwards. And in version B, there's no yellow banner. Instead, there is a checkbox at the bottom left.
Goal is to increase conversion.
Yeah, the goal is to increase conversion. Yeah.
All right, ready? Version A. Big yellow box. All right. Oh, sorry. Increase conversion in the full flow, right? For everybody. Yes. OK. All right. Version B. All right. I like it. This is an even split.
Yeah, this is
interesting. Neutral. No difference. One guy back there thinks it's neutral. Awesome. So I'll share a little bit of insight. In our team, we thought that, I thought that version B was going to do better. What about you?
Yeah, version B was, I think version A was too intrusive for advertisers. Like generally a yellow box would indicate a warning or an error. And just because of that, version B would do better.
All right.
Right.
So version B did do better, but I don't think any of us were expecting how much better. 30% lift in pair rate. This is by far our best experiment that we're going to show you today. 30% lift in pair rate from making a yellow box to a check box. You got one?
Can I guess why?
Go for it.
I guess.
I like this.
Yeah, I love it.
Doing our
Super
job for
interactive.
us. That's perfect.
My question was, can I guess why?
Yeah.
My answer is it's the perception of a coupon. Perception of a coupon is before the pay, like at the grocery store, not after you pay.
I think that's, I'll share my hypothesis on this, and I think it touches a little bit up on this. So a couple of things. First, yes, when people see this, they think immediately, oh, there's a coupon code. I should go look for that coupon code, instead of actually completing the objective that you want them to do, which in our case was to complete the flow. But second, more interestingly, we were issuing coupons. We have an acquisition engine, so we issue coupons out to advertisers. But they were affecting about less than 1% of the people that actually entered our payments flow. In other words, we were showing a big yellow banner to 100% of advertisers, and only less than 1% would actually know what the heck we were talking about. Targeting is key. By making it a checkbox and making it more subtle, we weren't distracting our customers with extraneous coupon codes. And we weren't confusing the heck out of people that didn't even know what we were talking about when we said coupon codes. Make sure that your flows don't distract your customers from your main objective. All right, I am going to ask for you guys to be honest. I lost track of who actually said version B. Can you guys raise your hand? I'm going to go for somebody down the middle near the end. Make it.
Yeah, I want to restate what she just said. Targeting is really important. Less than 1% of our advertisers had a coupon code, and this yellow banner was distracting 100% of them. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. So this one is really interesting. So the context on this is the credit card form that is shown to both users and advertisers who want to buy something on Facebook with a new credit card. In version A, we showed a very specific error message for every different type of credit card error. For example, if the card had an error of insufficient funds, a very specific error message was shown. If the card had an error of being inactive, another specific error message was shown. The example that you see here, the error message is for a card that has exceeded its credit limit. So in version B, what we did was we made one generic error message that would be shown for every error code. So whether the card did not have money, or whether it was inactive, or whether it had expired, or whatever the reason, it's one giant red box that is shown. Again, version A, very specific error codes. Version B, generic error message.
All right. You guys get that? Good? Version A? OK. Goal is conversion. Goal is always conversion.
The goal is always conversion, getting more people through. Yeah.
We're in the monetize track here. goal is conversion. All right, what about version B? We got a couple. Version B, you guys like big red boxes. All right, OK. I respect that. Neutral. OK, a couple of folks out there. All right. I remember when we ran this test, actually Mary in the audience was championed this relentlessly for months and months.
Yeah, it took almost 1 year to get this prioritized. Now I regret that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
spoiler alert. Yeah, we all thought that this was going to be good, but I don't think any of us expected that it was going to be this good. So it was a 4.7% lift in ads payer rate because people fundamentally, when they get into your flow, want to complete it. When they run into an error, that's a roadblock for them to accomplish the thing that they wanted to do. And in that case, the last thing you want to do is to give them something that's not helpful at all. Like, imagine if you had just hit your $5,000 spend limit. You bought a Big Mac at McDonald's, and now you're trying to buy a cow in Farmville. If you tried this purchase, you would get hit with an error that says, call your bank, please try again. Neither of which would have solved your problem. By giving you specifically what you needed to do, telling you exactly what the problem was, it actually allowed you to complete the flow, which was really, really awesome, because that's what they initially wanted to do. That's what your customers wanted to do. I think it's really easy as developers to build a lot of edge cases into our product, a lot of error states, and we usually throw some error state back at the customer. Think about those places and think about how you can make those actionable so that users can actually get information instead of hitting something that they just can't take action on.
Yeah. That gentleman has a question.
OK.
Yeah, so I just have a question in terms of like the messages, because like I know like on the development side of things, like sometimes if you provide a little too much information in forms, sometimes it can actually be bad for security, for example, or things like that. So like when it comes to figuring out what error message to put out there, you guys are growth. Like how do you work with the developers to figure out what's like what you can even test and things like that? Like do you get my question?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the way we did this was the first step was add logging. So we were able to add like very specific logging, see every error code, the number of instances that it was getting triggered, which market it was getting triggered. Was it like US, international, what sort of demographics it was? First step, add logging. Second step is analyze this logging. Look at this entire information, work with the data team, or like just look at it yourself and just see which are the top error codes that need to be solved. The third step is then go over like let's say the top 3, the top 5, the top 10, whichever your time permits for. Work with somebody who knows like English really well, like a content strategist or like a native English speaker, right? So work with somebody who's knows English really well and make sure that it is translated well into other languages as well. So by doing these 3 things, you attack like the highest leverage problem, and you're solving the case for most of the users. And in cases, I understand, like there could be security messaging that could come into play. So in those cases, you need to kind of weigh the pros and cons. Whether you give a very specific message, do you like invite fraudsters in? Or if you give a generic message, what sort of thing happens. So my recommendation is test out both the specific and the generic ones for the security-related things, and then see if there's additional fraud in one group versus the other, versus like increased conversion or not. So look at these 2 metrics, and then you could go ahead.
Awesome.
All right, this one is one of my favorites. So the context is similar to the previous one. Credit card entry form used by users and advertisers across Facebook who want to buy something and want to enter a new credit card. In version A, the expiration date is defaulted to the current month and the year. So in this case, it's defaulted to April 2014. In version B, we removed the default, and the user had to select an explicit month and a year in order to continue the form. So to restate version A, there was no action required on the user. They could just fill in the other fields and move ahead. In version B, other fields were still required, but expiration date had to be filled in order to move ahead.
This is a tricky one. If they leave the default, then whatever, if that's their expiration date, it works, right? If it's not, then then conversion technically goes down because we don't actually complete the flow.
Yeah, then they get a message saying that the expiration date is bad.
The question is if the expiration date was wrong, if it would affect the conversion rates, and it would. It's taken into account. All right, so how many people think version A, defaults are good? I got a couple hands. What about version B? Make them choose. How about neutral? Got a couple out there. I think when we ran this test,
Yeah.
I was like, this has got to be neutral, right?
This is like literally a one-line code change. Just like remove the default from
I
the
want
code.
his job. That's much better. All right. This idea came from our analyst who was thinking that it would be helpful to require it because then you'd force the person to actually choose. And he was right. So what happened here was version B1 was a nearly 1% lift in payer rate on something as not defaulting, which is incredibly counterintuitive. In fact, we are taught that defaults are really, really good. That's one less step that the user has to enter, right? And I was actually just talking to a friend at Facebook who was also working on growth, and she actually saw a lot of success from defaulting in the username based on the email alias and the email address they provided above. That's a great idea. But only do this if you have an intelligent default. Do not do this if you have an incredibly dumb default, in which our case, it was incredibly dumb. We were like, hold up, we think we can guess your expiration date. It's probably today's date. And that just, there was no basis for this. In fact, if your card was actually expired today, then why are we processing it? It made no sense. And by actually not defaulting, we forced the user to address the expiration date fields and put it in so that they didn't ignore it.
The only worst date would have been an older date.
Yeah, like a previous date.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this is on the ads product. So advertisers need to have a valid payment method on file in order for the ads to run. This is because our ad system is like a subscription service. Advertisers come in, they make an ad, and at the end of the day or at the end of the billing period, we charge them. So very similar to a subscription service. And in cases where the primary payment method fails, then we need to pause their account and their campaign, and the subscription basically ends. So with this new experience, what we did was we added a yellow banner at the top of Ads Manager that encouraged advertisers to go in and add a backup payment method. This backup payment method would be used if the primary one failed. So in an example, let's say an advertiser comes in, has both a primary payment method like a credit card or PayPal and a backup payment method like credit card or PayPal or a bank account. The primary one fails, we use the backup one. If they do not have a backup one, if the primary one fails, the ad service is stopped.
All right, this one's a little bit of a different format. So the way we're going to do this is if you think that doing this new experience helped us get more backup payment methods, and this is good for the ecosystem for us, so hopefully relevant for a lot of you guys that have subscription services, then raise your hand now. This is good. How about no, this is negative. This was overall bad. Corner of negativity right here. No, I'm kidding. All right, what about neutral? A couple folks. I'm losing a couple of you guys. All right, OK. I remember on our team, we were like, this has to be positive. It's by definition purely incremental.
Almost mathematically, it had to be positive, right?
Right? OK. So here's what happened. Another mix. We got 3 times more payment methods by showing this megaphone, and it was like really effective down that vector, but it came at a huge cost. A 10.5% drop in revenue. That's insane. What was happening? Well, when we broke down the data, it was actually really interesting. If you looked at the people that actually completed this flow, they got this, they saw it, they clicked on it, they added a backup payment method, they got it. They understood the value proposition, they actually spent a little bit more. But if you looked at the people that saw this and didn't add a payment method, they spent a lot less, a lot less. And that was the majority of people, and the majority of those people were actually new advertisers that just come into the system, created their first ad, added their first credit card, and immediately upon landing in their ads manager was hit with a message that said, give me another one. It was an incredibly negative experience for those people, and we just did a terrible job with targeting. So actually, one of the next iterations we're going to try of this test is to actually target the folks that we think will actually get value from this. But once again, targeting is key. This has happened in 2 of our tests, and if we had gotten the targeting right, it could have been the difference between a successful test and a failed test.
Yeah, targeting is key, and looking at data from a 360-degree perspective on all the different metrics in a metric suite would really help.
Last one.
The last one. Context is similar to some of the experiments that you've seen in the past. It's on the credit card form that users need to add a new credit card. This one is simple. Version A has a text field for the user or the advertiser to enter a zip code. Version B, no text field. That's the only difference. A has one additional text field, B, no text field.
Some of you guys are looking at me like this is a trick question. All right, version A, zip code. I love numerical representations of my neighborhoods. Only a couple folks. All right. What about version B? Zip codes are dumb. All right, got a couple of folks here. OK. What about neutral? This made no difference. OK, couple. What was your hypothesis?
I thought version A would perform worse because of the additional friction.
Yeah?
Yeah. Generally, when you add friction without any reason, there is no reason for it to perform better because there's just additional work, additional thinking on the user. I just wouldn't think, why would it perform better?
This surprised all of us. Version A, 1.38% lift in conversion. We might have totally missed this because we were actually not doing this as a growth test. We actually did this because we needed to collect zip code for a completely different initiative. It was only because we had set ourselves up to measure all of our tests systematically that we actually caught that this was a win. It blew all of our minds. Our hypothesis here is that actually sometimes asking the right questions that match the expectations of your customer makes sense. You go to Amazon, they ask for your zip code. You go to a gas station, they ask for your zip code. Within the context of a payment flow, zip codes make a ton of sense. Sometimes they can even provide security. It's the right level of friction because you feel like somebody can't steal your credit card. And certainly in the United States, this was the case.
Yeah. I think a few questions there.
We got a lot of controversial questions there.
Just take into account errors thrown by credit cards that require zip code?
Can you?
No, in both these cases, like the card companies did not want a zip code. So this is fairly just for data storage, and it's a user perception.
We didn't send the zip code to the processor.
We didn't send actually some zip code.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was, in other words, this was not attributed to the increase in auth rates, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, no, this was not. This was just like a user sentiment lift.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, just for the previous slide on the revenue number, where there was a 10% drop.
Yeah.
How did you isolate for the payment amounts for those payers, right? Because how do you know that you just didn't get like two really big payers in one of the cohorts randomly?
That's a great question. We actually, without being too technical, our analytics framework actually automatically selects out whales. So we call them whales in our system, which is like people that spend in the top 10 percentile, and we actually systematically remove them when we do data analysis. So hopefully that should adjust for that factor. Does that answer your question?
If you got just a little bit more technical, could you
Sure.
maybe explain how, maybe explain just a little bit more about that? Like how do you decide like what point do you cut them off?
So unfortunately, it's somewhat dumb in our system, but we actually have like an overall analytics framework at Facebook, which is really, really cool. It's actually a system where we randomly distribute people between, like, it's typical A/B testing, and we actually cut them across all the other metrics. And then once, it's really hard to explain, but I think that like there was research done on this that said that like the top 10 percentile was like a very clear segment that you can cut away that represent the whales. And so when we do systematic testing, we just actually systematically remove those users from our test pool.
Basically, look at spend by distribution of percentiles, and it is an arbitrary thing. Like and a couple of analysts decide that after a particular percentile, we would not consider these guys because they would significantly influence the direction one way or the other. So basically, look at the percentile and then use human intelligence and knowledge, like kind of take out the extremes out.
So if it's arbitrary, then are you able to repeat these experiments and get the same results? Like what's the variance if you repeat them?
So all these things that we've shown you are statistically significant. So like by definition, that means if we run this 100 times, roughly 95 of the times, there will be a significant difference.
It's a 95% confidence interval. So that means that 95 out of 100, it would be the same exact result.
But do you run them twice?
No, it runs once. We want to make sure we move fast enough. That's why we wait for the statistically significant difference in like an uplift and then move on from it. Because it's very easy to like overanalyze stuff.
Man, I feel like we're getting more questions, not less.
It's very easy to overanalyze stuff, like spend like 1 month doing a test. But then when we have like a good set of numbers, which is 95% confidence interval, we should just go with it.
How about, do you think we can talk afterwards? Would that be okay if we finish up? This is actually the last test, so we'll wrap up with best practices and we can chat in person. Does that sound good? All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about best practices really quickly. So I've showed you a lot of experiments that we've run. Let's sum up kind of what we've learned from those experiments. We'll sum up a little bit about the mindset, and then we'll end on how this applies to you. So here's my 3 takeaways from all the experiments we ran in the last year. First, define your success metric. Multiple cases, we had trade-offs to make. There were 2 experiments that we showed you today that had a mix. Conversion went up, refund rate went up. Conversion went up, revenue went down. When you have to make trade-offs, it's really, really, really important that you know what your definition of success is, or how do you make those trade-offs. Second, targeting is critical. Our biggest win came from not showing something that applied to 1% of the users to 100% of them. That was the coupon test. When you use targeting well, it can be the difference between success and failure. Lastly, good experiences do matter. When you think about the minimizing cancel button, that is a test that we chose not to roll out because we knew this was a bad experience for the user.
Yeah.
And we knew that it'd only temporarily work. Just a refresher, here are the things we think are most important about our mindset at Facebook. Listen to the tractor maker. Listen to all people in your org. Get ideas from everywhere. Do not discriminate from where they come from. Be data-driven. We were embarrassingly wrong about most of our tests. If we had relied on our intuition, we would have rolled with the wrong thing. And lastly, be persistent. Buy a gong. There's a great gong on Amazon for 80 bucks. Find whatever it takes to keep you going through the times when you seem like you only get neutral or negative results. I guarantee you there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, one point on data-driven. It's really important to think of building automated data analysis framework so that for every single test that you roll out, you don't manually go in and pull the data and see how it performs along different metrics. Once you build this framework, you can just like run a test. You can see like the top 3 metrics, how they perform. It's an upfront investment, but once you do it, it makes things really easy.
All right, last slide. How does this apply to you? If you're, once again, if you're a Canvas developer, if you're building a Facebook Canvas, we work for you. You got all these things for free, which is really awesome. So I hope you guys choose to build with us in the future. Also, please open source your process. Share with us your learnings. We gave this talk not only to share what we've learned, but also to actually get ideas from you guys. I'm really hoping that every one of you guys actually comes up to the stage after this, and we can start jotting down ideas on things we can do to make things better. I think there's a couple of you guys already that are being very critical of how we ran our test, and hopefully, I love that. That's a great thing. That means that we can get better at it. And lastly, try these tactics and try these themes out. Tell us if they work for you. Tell us if they don't. I'm really hoping that this isn't a one-way conversation, that it's not me telling you what worked for us, but rather we get ideas from you once again. Thank you for attending our talk, and me and Pratap will stay for questions, and I think we have a couple of outstanding questions over there that we're happy to answer. All right.
Thank you, guys. Let's give a round of applause to Pratap and Sharon. For all of you guys, we're going to believe that you guys can practice some good faith. We have extra prizes for those who weren't able to grab any, so definitely feel free to come up and also come up and ask questions. Also, another thing to note is we are getting set up for the after party, so please definitely stay. We'd love to see you guys out there. I'm sure they'd love to grab a drink with you guys. Thank you guys again for joining us today. We appreciate it.